I have a simple math equation for you here. Sacramento Kings minus De'Aaron Fox equals unrecognizable. Sacramento Kings plus De'Aaron Fox equals back to normal. The Kings respond exactly how we needed them to with a 20-point win in Houston, and baby Fox is born. You're listening to the Locked On Kings podcast.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all regular season long. Today, presented by Prize Picks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports reporter and producer for ABC 10 News. And boy, what a difference a day makes, right? Last night, Kings get their ass kicked by the New Orleans Pelicans. Fans are freaking out, wondering if this is the slide that we've all been waiting for, if this team is in a downward spiral. When is De'Aaron Fox coming back? The Kings' offense looks terrible. The starters looked horrible. Even Domantas Sabonis struggled. All the teams in the West are starting to make up ground and are biting on the heels of the Sacramento Kings in the third seed. And then we get to today, where the Sacramento Kings do what they've done a handful of times over the last couple of months, which is respond. And that is one of the main things that I want to focus on. I brought this up on yesterday's podcast, but maybe some of you skipped it or missed it because you just needed to decompress and forget about the Sacramento Kings basketball after what happened last night. So let me relay it out for you. The Kings have not lost more than 2 straight games since November. Of course, they started the season 0-4 in the end of November around Thanksgiving time. They lost 3 straight. From that point on, they have not lost more than 2 straight games. Compare that to some of their competition or the teams that are around them in the Western Conference, right? The Memphis Grizzlies, the Phoenix Suns, the Los Angeles Lakers, the New Orleans Pelicans, the Golden State Warriors, LA Clippers, and Minnesota Timberwolves have all lost 5 straight games at least once this season. Some of them even more than that. So what's the point of me bringing that up? The point is the Sacramento Kings have been able to consistently this season avoid what many teams in the West have not been able to avoid, which is those downward spirals, those slides, where 5 straight games can drop you from 3rd seed or 4th seed in the West to 9th or 10th in the play-in picture. Sacramento has been able to avoid that, and they've done so over and over and over again with different reasons, right? Sometimes it was De'Aaron Fox out. Sometimes it was Domantas Sabonis playing hurt. Other times it was the offense really struggling. Sometimes it was the defense really playing terribly like they've done a handful of times this season. There have been different reasons why the Kings have struggled at different times this season, and yet every single time when they've needed to, when they're facing adversity, they have responded as a team. Of course, it helps in a major way that the Sacramento Kings did it tonight with De'Aaron Fox returning. We'll talk about De'Aaron in just a little bit. But one thing I want to make sure we don't just brush under the rug. You could say this is just the Rockets, right? Oh, the Kings won, but they beat the Rockets, right? Ho-hum. This is a team at the bottom of the Western Conference. They don't care about winning this year. The Kings should have beaten the Rockets, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter to me. It does not matter that it was just the Rockets. What matters to me is how the Sacramento Kings played. And if you want to keep moving the goalposts for wins to kind of undermine wins, that's fine. You could say it was just this, or this team was missing this person, or whatever you want to somehow undermine Kings wins over the course of the season. You could even go back to when the Kings destroyed the New Orleans, or rather the Brooklyn Nets on national television in Sacramento. You could say, oh, Kyrie didn't play in that game, or whatever you want to say. To me, it's focusing on the Sacramento Kings and Sacramento Kings alone. And what I asked at the end of yesterday's podcast, I said, no excuses, handle your business, respond. Doesn't matter how, doesn't matter in what way. This was before we knew De'Aaron Fox was returning. Handle your business and respond. Yes, you should beat the Houston Rockets regardless of if it's on the road or in Sacramento based off of where these two teams are. But you still have to do it. And based on the fact that the Kings have consistently, not just this season, but throughout the last 16 years, struggled with playing to the level of their competition, it is encouraging to me to see Sacramento do what they were supposed to do, to defeat the Houston Rockets by 20 points. And while the Rockets made some runs, they caught fire from three-point range in the third quarter, Sacramento continued to handle business, and early fourth quarter did what good teams do, which is put worse teams away. The Kings gave us what we asked for in tonight's game. In the grand scheme of things, a win against the Houston Rockets, maybe not that big of a deal. The Kings are now 3-0 against the Rockets. Hopefully it'll be 4-0 by the time they play the Rockets on Wednesday to wrap up this road trip. But overall, to me, when you look at the context of this game, when you look at where the Sacramento Kings are at, the circumstances, being in the longest road trip of the season, where we're at in the season with how tired everybody is with the All-Star break being just a handful of games away. Regardless of who the Kings are playing, wins like this are not only needed to calm the fan base down, they're not only needed to maintain that third seed in the Western Conference, they're needed for the confidence of the roster. This team tonight is who the Sacramento Kings are. Maybe they didn't play well enough to beat everybody by 20 points tonight. Maybe a 20-point win against the Rockets means it's only a 5-point win against the Warriors or whoever you want to insert there. I don't care. It's a win. Sacramento responded. They did what you could have asked, or everything you could have asked for tonight outside of like De'Aaron Fox going for 40 points or Domantas Sabonis getting a triple-double or getting a little like nitpicky over the top. Compared to where we were at less than 24 hours ago to where we're at right now, the Kings gave us what we needed to see to remind us that, like I said, last night's game, especially from the starters, was a fluke. Last night's game, these last two games on this road trip, these losses don't define who the Sacramento Kings are. This win tonight and how the Sacramento Kings looked as a team, especially offensively, this is why they're the third seed in the Western Conference, and this is who this team is. So let's talk about De'Aaron Fox. First off, congratulations to the Fox family, De'Aaron and Rasay. Their son, Rain, was born in Houston on Friday, February 3rd, 2023. That is 2/3/23, a.k.a. Michael Jordan Day. That's pretty rad. 2/3/23. 23 also happens to be my favorite number because I was born on May 23rd. So congratulations to him. And that's, I think, one day before Malik Monk's birthday, if I'm not mistaken. So that's pretty cool, given the friendship between the Fox family and Malik. So that's really, really cool. And, I mean, I'm a relatively new father. Like, I was, my son's 17 months old. I know this isn't De'Aaron's first kid. It's De'Aaron and Rasay's first kid together. There's no feeling like it. And one thing I want to say, too, because I know I addressed this a little bit, and I certainly talked about this on social media, people giving De'Aaron crap for missing the last couple of games for personal reasons to be with his wife during the birth of his son. Let's put this into perspective. Most fans, I'd say most human beings are not giving De'Aaron a hard time for this, right? I'm speaking to the very, very small minority. But I think all of us as human beings can respect and appreciate the sacrifice that the Fox family is making right now. Think about this. Even as fathers, right, we get, depending upon what state you're in, but in California, I think it's like 2 weeks or whatever it is of what is it called? Paternity leave. Thank you, brain. 2 weeks of paternity leave. That's what I got, essentially. I took 2 weeks of paternity leave when my son was born. De'Aaron is back to work, away from his family and his newborn son, 3 days later. Back working, back playing. And that's not just a credit on De'Aaron. That's a credit on Rasay for being an incredibly strong mother to not only go through the process of giving birth, but to be supportive enough of her husband and strong enough as a mother to be able to handle those responsibilities and allow De'Aaron to go and play the game that he loves and be there for his teammates instead of being there for her. Like, that's a sacrifice that they're making, because it doesn't matter how many millions of dollars De'Aaron's making, and it doesn't matter that he plays a game for a living. That does not make postpartum easier. And this is speaking from someone who just had the guy perspective and has no idea what it's really like to go through postpartum, but I at least have an appreciation for it as a father. I know it was probably difficult for De'Aaron to step away. I know it's extremely difficult for Rasay to have to deal with everything without De'Aaron being there. And yet, she and that family are willing to make that sacrifice so De'Aaron can go to work and do his job and lead these Sacramento Kings to victory. That deserves a ton of appreciation. 16 points, 8 assists, 2 steals in 29 minutes for De'Aaron Fox tonight. De'Aaron looked great. I love the fact that he only had to play 29 minutes in his first game back, But what we're really going to talk about is not so much the numbers that De'Aaron put up. We're going to talk about how the team just looks back to normal with De'Aaron out there, the confidence. And I spent a lot of time talking about this on last night's pod. It's not just the fact that the Kings were missing their leading scorer, the only guy averaging 20 points or more per game. De'Aaron's averaging 24 a game. It wasn't just that they were missing that. They were missing someone who draws so much attention, who is such a, if De'Aaron Fox, or rather, if Domantas Sabonis is like the spine or the foundation or the backbone of what the Sacramento Kings do, De'Aaron is the engine that makes it run, right? So much of the Kings' offense is a reaction to how defenses react to what De'Aaron Fox does. And when you're missing that, as good as Domantas Sabonis is the guy that you can run everything through, the Kings are a completely different team, as we saw over the last couple of games. If this doesn't help De'Aaron's case of being an all-star, and hopefully he will be an all-star reserve, I don't know what does, because the Kings are clearly a significantly better and more comfortable team with him out there. The fact that this offense, one of the best offenses, not just this season, but one of the best offenses statistically in NBA history. I'm not saying that they're above some of the greatest offenses of all time, but statistically in the modern era with stats and three-point shooting and whatever, the Kings are one of the best offenses that we've ever seen. Not the best, but one of the best amongst the top. The fact that that offense was unrecognizable with De'Aaron Fox out of the game, that's not a coincidence. The way that everybody else plays off De'Aaron is significant. The Kings had 6 players in double-figure scoring tonight. That's another thing I focused a lot on yesterday's pod, because that has been a consistent trend for the Kings all season long, but especially in wins. When the Kings are winning games, typically they have 6 or 7 players finishing in double-figure scoring. Typically, 5 of those 6 or 7 are the starters. The Kings starters had their worst game, period, this season last night in New Orleans. Tonight, all but one of them finished in double figures, and the one was Harrison Barnes, who finished with 9, and then you got 2 players finishing with double figures off of the bench. Nearly 7 guys finishing in double figures again as soon as De'Aaron Fox comes back. Again, that is not a coincidence. Let's talk about Keegan Murray, man. Whew! Keegan freaking Murray. You could see, if you zoomed in on his hands, or if you actually pause the TV after he shoots, you'll see the little flames coming off of his hand like it's a game of NBA Jam. Like, he was on one tonight. And I've been listening to podcasts. I was listening to Sacramento Sports Talk Radio today. I was listening to ESPN 1320, D-Lo and Casey with James Ham on, and they were talking a lot about the rookie wall, right? It's this term that we use for when rookies get to the point in the season where they're playing more games than they ever played in their season before, or they ever played in college in a shorter period of time. Typically, they start to slow down a little bit, or they hit struggles. And Keegan, remember, hit some struggles early on in this season, and it looked like over the past couple of games offensively, he had hit a wall again. He was shooting in the 20s from 20% from the field. Offensively, he was really struggling. What was good to see was that he was averaging, I think, 7 rebounds a game over that stretch. So at least he was still contributing in the area that the Sacramento Kings and Mike Brown have challenged him, which is on the glass. Tonight, Keegan Murray ran through that wall without issue. And now, we have to balance the reactions, right? Was it really a rookie wall, or is it just a shooting slump that happens? Kevin Huerter's going through a shooting slump at the same time, but he's not a rookie, so we can't call that a rookie wall. Keegan Murray is one of the best shooters in the league. He is. I mean, the volume of which he shoots three-pointers is not just instrumental to the Sacramento Kings and their success, it's instrumental to the modern NBA, and he's doing this as a rookie. He's doing this right away. Imagine how his game is going to continue to develop. And again, I go back to the arguments that I was making and the things that I was saying when I wanted the Kings to draft Keegan Murray back over the summertime. I was saying Keegan Murray fits perfectly with what the Sacramento Kings are trying to do offensively, because he's a three-point shooting threat, and he's going to get so many open looks that he should not be getting. Keegan Murray should not get as much space on the perimeter as he does, and the reason why he does is because he plays with De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. They draw so much attention that Keegan can have a field day on the perimeter. Tonight, 30 is the number of the night. He drops 30 points, went 8 of 12 shooting from three-point range, had 6 rebounds and 2 steals. So 30 is a career high in points. The 8 three-pointers are a career high for him in made threes. He is the 7th King this season. Thank you, Dave Deuce Mason, for this stat. He is the 7th King this season to score 30 or more points, and 30 matches the win total of last season. The Kings have won 30 games this year. They won 30 games last season, and there's still 29 more games to go. And also, I got this stat from Frankie Cardicelli from Sports 1140 KHDK. Great stat from Frankie, too. We focus on the 30. We don't focus on the 14 road wins. The Kings have won 14 games on the road this season. They won 14 games on the road total last season. Again, with 29 more games to go. Keegan Murray's an instrumental part of that. Of course, De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis are a significant part of that. These are the things that we forget about, and it's easy to forget about when you're going through the emotions of a bad loss like last night. But these are the things that truly define this team. This is who the Sacramento Kings are, not what happened last night. I'm fired up to see the beam in the sky. I'm fired up to know that Fox has a very healthy son. It's a good time right now. Tonight is a night worth celebrating for the Sacramento Kings, of course. Wake up tomorrow, it's back to work. But tonight, Kings fans, the Kings organization, the Fox family, everybody, we can celebrate and feel good again about where these Kings are at. Like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Prize Picks, in my opinion, is the #1 way to play daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy NBA. Instead of dealing with the hassle of setting your lineups every single day and drafting teams, which I know some of you enjoy, and Prize Picks still gives you an element of that. The way Prize Picks works, you get 2 to 6 players, and if they will go and score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times your entry. So instead of setting lineups and having to play against other players who maybe have better teams than you, or they have players that are playing more in 1 week than your players are, instead of having to deal with all that, you select any given night the players that you want, like De'Aaron Fox, for example. You could select De'Aaron Fox tonight and his projected over-under for scoring, or maybe it was Malik Monk, or it could be for anybody for any team. You pick those, you get them right, you win up to 25 times your entry. And Prize Picks offers not just NBA lines, not just NFL lines. They offer so many different sports like the MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. And the best part, there's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. They offer safe and fast withdrawals. And Prize Picks is currently operational in over 30 states and in Canada. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up for daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. So you deposit $100, you get $100. You deposit $50, you get $50. It's free money for you to then make more money on Prize Picks, the #1 way to play daily fantasy sports. Let's talk about the Kings bench a little bit, and I want to start with someone who, when you look at the box score, you're not going to be too impressed. It's a kind of a typical box score for Davion Mitchell. But I love what Davion did tonight. And we've been hard on Davion. I've been hard on Davion here on Locked On. I thought he did not do well in the 2 games that De'Aaron Fox was out. Of course, those are massive shoes to fill. But I thought Davion Mitchell tonight came in off the bench and set the tone. He also looked a little more relaxed, right? Like, there wasn't the weight on his shoulders of having to fill in for De'Aaron. He could go back to doing what he does. He comes into the game, he immediately hits a three-pointer to get his offense going. He draws a charge, and then he locks up Jalen Green. Like, he looked like off night. He was giving Jalen Green fits, especially in the first quarter and early second quarter. Like, that's what we expect. That's what we need every single night from Davion Mitchell. Now, of course, you want more on top of that from your backup point guard, especially in games where De'Aaron is not playing, or maybe De'Aaron's having a bad night. You want to be able to have a reliable option in Davion Mitchell, and hopefully he can still develop into that, especially offensively. But overall, this is who Davion Mitchell is at his core. And if this is what you get every single night from Davion Mitchell as a foundation, you know you have a solid rotational piece that you can at least rely on. Then hopefully you can add on to that from there. But I love how Davion set the tone. He deserves the flowers. He deserves the recognition for what he did in tonight's game, especially considering how critical many of us have been of his game as of late. How about Malik Monk, or should I call him fourth quarter Monk? I have a feeling that if we had mic'd up Malik Monk tonight, we probably would have heard him talking some trash to De'Aaron Fox, because Malik Monk stole the fourth quarter Fox title and put it on himself tonight. Fourth quarter Monk scored 15 of his 20 points in the fourth quarter. He went 5 of 6 from the field, 4 of 5 from three-point range in the fourth quarter. And as a whole, the Kings bench, 52 points. That included Trey Lyles. That included a little bit from Terrence Davis. Like, in addition to De'Aaron Fox having a positive effect on the starting lineup, It looked like the entire team was rejuvenated. But this also goes back to one of my major points about this team's ability to respond. Mike Brown has talked a lot about how he demands everybody to be all in, to completely buy into what the Sacramento Kings are doing, right? I've told you before that, and you might have heard Mike Brown talk about it before, the Kings have contracts that the entire team has signed committing to be all in. And one is hanging up in their locker room in Sacramento. The other one is hanging up in their practice facility. I wonder if they actually have one that travels with the team. Because tonight's game, from top to bottom of this roster, to me, shows not only this team's ability to overcome adversity, but a reminder of what these guys signed up for and their commitment to the Kings' cause. The team looked all in tonight. The team looked like they were, like I wanted them to be, embarrassed by what happened last night and determined to not let it happen again, regardless of who they played. I think the Sacramento Kings would have beaten almost anybody tonight. I think the Kings would have responded, especially with De'Aaron Fox coming back. I think the Kings would have responded this way against anybody. It just so happened to be the Houston Rockets, which resulted in a 20-point win. But this team tonight came together and bounced back. And that speaks volumes to the culture of what Mike Brown and the Sacramento Kings are building here. And then again, I revisit a conversation that a lot of us have been having this week, a major conversation again from last night's podcast. What does Monte McNair do with this upcoming trade deadline, right? We're 3 days away. Thursday is the trade deadline. And I've shared with you, and it's become an unpopular opinion as of late, but I've shared with you, if the Kings stay put, if the Kings don't make any moves, I'm okay with it. Because I trust this roster. I believe this roster is bought in to be good enough to sustain where they're at right now, or at the very least drop only a couple spots to where they skip the play-in entirely and go right into the playoffs. A top 6 seed is what I'm talking about. I think this team, as constructed, can do it. Of course, if you want to improve this roster, if you can improve this roster and it makes sense, Monte McNair is going to do it. He has my full trust in that, and I believe Monte is always going to be searching for that no matter the circumstance. But it is not the end of the world if the Kings don't make a move. You, of course, want to improve. You want to make this roster better and improve this roster as much as you possibly can. But the way some fans were reacting, and again, you can act any way you want. You can fan however you want. I'm not policing you. I'm just sharing my opinion on the situation. The way some fans were reacting was Monte McNair absolutely has to make a move or this team is doomed. That is not the case at all. This team, as it stands, is a 3rd seed. They've gotten to this point. We're well past the halfway point of the season. They don't have to make a move in order to remain a good team. It'll probably help, especially with how much harder it's going to get. And that maybe is the main point. It's going to get harder, so maybe you want to add a reinforcement or two that can really help this team, and Monty's going to look to do that. But he doesn't have to do that, and he's not going to make a knee-jerk move just to accomplish that goal. This episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by Built Bar. If you've been a long-time listener of the Locked On Kings podcast or just the Locked On Podcast Network, period, you know that Built Bar has been a long-time friend of ours. And now that we're in February, typically if you make it through January and you're sticking to those New Year's resolutions, you've made it through the hardest part. But to help you maintain those New Year's resolutions of eating healthier or losing weight or maybe putting on muscle, Built Bars and Built products can help you with that. Built Bars not only make you feel better and make you eat better, help you eat better and give your body the nutrition that you need and the protein that you need. On top of that, Built Bars help satisfy that sweet tooth that all of us really struggle to give up when we're trying to eat healthier or do better and manage what we are consuming, right? Built Bar says you don't have to get rid of all that. We'll just replace it with a protein bar that's covered in 100% chocolate and still tastes like those candy bars or those desserts that you love. But the best part, when you look at the numbers, right? Just like we love the stats of players, let's talk about the stats of these Built Bars. The average Built Bar has only 130 calories, 6 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. Not to mention they have their Built granola bars, which are really good if you're going on hikes or runs or anything like that. And their marshmallow puffs, which are protein-infused marshmallows. Yeah, these are real things, and they come in so many different flavors. Like you can go, instead of going to Built.com to order a box like you've had to do for a long time up to this point, now you can go to Walmart or Sam's Club, go to the pharmacy section, you can get a box right there and try flavors like their brownie batter or churro. They're delicious. They're available for you right now, and I promise you, you will enjoy them. Give them a try. Built.com. Before we wrap up, let's take a look at the standings. Now, at the time of this recording, there still are games going on. Last I checked, the Golden State Warriors and the Oklahoma City Thunder were locked in a tight battle. Go Thunder to help the Kings create some more separation from the Warriors. The good news, or the bad news, I should say, is the Los Angeles Clippers won tonight against the new-look Brooklyn Nets. So the Clippers remain just half a game back of the Sacramento Kings in that 4th spot. So the Clippers chomping on the Kings' heels, and there are going to be a lot of other teams that are chomping on the Kings' heels. But like I said at the beginning of the show, the Kings have done what none of those teams have been able to do to this point, and they've avoided those 5+ game losing streaks and skids that really could impact this roster or their position in the standings. I'm pretty confident if the Kings can manage to go on or to avoid losing streaks of 4 or more for the remainder of the season, I think they'll remain a top 4 seed. I'm pretty confident in saying that. Of course, you also want to avoid the losing 5 of the last 6 games, so you lose 3 straight, win 1, and then lose 2, right? You want to avoid something like that as well, but I really feel confident in this Kings' ability to avoid long losing streaks for the remainder of the season. If they do that, I like their chances to not only secure a playoff bid, which was, again, the goal for all of us coming into this season, but to secure home court advantage for the opening round, which is just incredible to be able to say. Still a lot of work to get to that point. And as for the Sacramento Kings, they got to handle their business on Wednesday. You beat the Houston Rockets on Wednesday. It doesn't have to be as dominant as it was tonight. It could be more dominant than it was tonight. I don't care what the final score is on Wednesday. Get a win in Houston. Go back to Sacramento with a 4-3 road trip, given all the adversity that you faced with this road trip. 4-3. When it might have been the bare minimum when we started. As of right now, it's the hope, and if that is accomplished, it's still a successful, absolutely a successful road trip for the Kings, given everything that has gone on. So if the Kings can take this 4-3 road trip back to Sacramento, they have 3 more games until the All-Star break, 2 straight games against the Dallas Mavericks at home, and then they wrap up against the Phoenix Suns before going on a well-deserved and much-needed break. It's going to be interesting with those Dallas Mavericks games. Reportedly, that's going to be the first time that we see Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving together. So we might get to be the guinea pig in a lot of ways for that new-look Dallas Mavericks squad that, again, I don't have too much confidence in. I don't think it's going to work, and I'm not. If I'm the Sacramento Kings, I'm not any more scared of the Mavericks than I was before they made that deal. That's just me. Maybe I'm even a little less scared because they traded away a ton of their depth in order to pull off that move. We still don't know about the 3-point shooting contest. I've heard rumors and some buzz and some chatter that Kevin Huerter might be up for being in that contest. And hell, the way Keegan Murray has been shooting this season, Keegan Murray deserves to be under consideration as well. But I do know, no matter who's competing in whatever event, I'm very excited to announce I'm going to be going to Salt Lake City to cover the All-Star festivities. I'm going courtesy of ABC 10, so big thanks to my employer for sending me and my colleague Kevin John out there. So we're very excited to be there. We'll be there from Thursday. I don't know what the dates are. That Thursday through Monday. So we'll be there for all of the events. I know there are some other Kings journalists like Frankie Cardicelli and Chris Watkins from Sacktown Sports who are going to be going. I think Sean Cunningham is going to be down there. Brendan Nunez is trying to get down there or might already be getting down there. I have no idea, but it's going to be really cool to see the Kings contingent down there. And I'm very excited to not only provide great content for ABC 10, I'll be doing Locked On Kings podcasts from All-Star Weekend. Hopefully a lot of really unique content, my perspective on everything. I've never seen and never been to an All-Star game before, so I'm really looking forward to that. And hopefully I can somewhat vicariously bring you along with me and show you what it's like behind the scenes and explain what it's like to actually be there. And for those of you Kings fans who are actually going to Salt Lake City, let me know. I would love to bump into you and say hi while you're down there. This is awesome for me. It's incredible, an opportunity for me in my career to be able to do this, and it's all because of the support that you've shown me in whatever work that I'm doing, no matter what it's for, but especially here on Locked On Kings. I love you. Thanks you so much. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of the Locked On Kings podcast. Of course, we're going to have great coverage of the upcoming NBA trade deadline, and as of right now, the plan is on deadline day, right after the deadline, so around 12:30 Pacific time, myself and Chris Watkins from Sacktown Sports 1140 are going to be doing a Locked On Kings trade deadline podcast. I'm not sure if it's going to be live or not. We'll work out the details, but either way, I'll have a post-game or post-trade deadline pod for you then. And then, of course, all the Kings action over the remainder of this week until the All-Star break begins. I'll have all of that for you as well. Love you. Can't wait to talk to you next time. Until then, my name is Matt George. You have been listening to Locked On Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.